Really excited about today's broadcast. We have AMVETS National Commander Jan Brown and Executive Director Joe Shinelli with us here today after what was a bombshell of a week last week for veterans in the Department of Veterans Affairs. President-elect Joe Biden taps Dennis McDonough, Barack Obama's former chief of staff, to lead the Department of Veterans Affairs, a non-veteran. We don't really know for sure how much he knows about veterans issues, but we're going to get into that today. Also, the VA OIG dropping a bombshell of a report with regards to Secretary Wilkie's handling of a sexual assault issue at the Department of Veterans Affairs, or sexual harassment issue at the Department of Veterans Affairs. We're going to get into all that and more today. This is the Nimitz Report. Hey, Joe, Jan, how are you guys doing today?
Great. Good morning.
Never better.
Well, really appreciate you guys taking some time to, sit down with us today and to dive into these issues that you guys have been tracking so closely. I mean, I feel like you guys have really been on top of this for AMVETS and the AMVETS family. And, let's go ahead and kick things off and talk about, this new VA secretary, not appointed, but certainly the selection, and maybe I'll start off with a little bit about what we know about Dennis. He was President Obama's chief of staff. He was the deputy national security advisor from 2010 to 2013, chief of staff to the National Security Council. He's from Minnesota, has kids, went to St. John's, went to Georgetown for a degree in, you got a very big background, I think, in national security, foreign affairs. You see him here in the what looks like the Situation Room. I believe this is where they're watching actually the Navy SEALs go after Osama bin Laden. So certainly an pick, right?
It was the phone started ringing about 7 a.m. on Thursday morning, and other veterans, my colleagues with other veterans organizations, and the leak was getting out there that it was him, and everyone was really surprised. He was not on any of our radar. In fact, we had 4 different news releases ready to go to react to who President-elect Biden was going to nominate, and Dennis McDonough was not one of those people. None of us had considered him. We knew him only as the former chief of staff of the White House, and did not know he had interest, let alone experience, in the veterans community.
Yeah, and certainly, I wish I would have been watching some of the other nominations more closely to see if they pulled the whole look here, and we selected this guy kind of out of left field. I don't know if that happened with other picks. But
a little bit. I don't know that this was strategic in that way either. I just think that the transition team which is very unusual in Washington. They were very tight-lipped. There was no leaks. So that's something that really hasn't been talked about, but it's actually very impressive that the transition team kept this under the lid. But at the same time, I kind of wonder if they should have talked with us a little bit so that we could at least be prepared to speak intelligently about the nominee, because as soon as the name was out there, every media agency in the country was calling us for our reaction, and we didn't know how to react yet. We didn't know much about him.
That's right. Jen, what was your gut reaction? And then I think, second to that, what was kind of your follow-up reaction maybe once you learned a little bit more about Dennis?
Initially, I had to look up to see who he was.
Okay.
And what his background was. I didn't have a good feel for him initially. He's not a veteran, but neither was Dr. Shulkin. you know.
Yeah.
I felt a little blindsided based on, the nominees that we thought were going to be there. What we had kind of assumed, probably not a good thing. But I think the fact that he's reached out, to the organizations on his own. I know he's talked to Joe personally. That's a good sign that he's willing to work with us. And I'm the one that's going to give you the benefit of the doubt until you mess up. So and that's the way I kind of want to proceed with this. Is I'm not going to assume he can't do the job. I'm going to assume he can do the job, and I'm hoping that he surrounds himself with people that know the system, know what the problems are, what the strong points are, and that he can take it from there. So
yeah, and I think I shared some of your all's sentiments in kind of the gut reaction of this and we make this assumption all the time in this space, right? How many political leaders have we seen that pretend or come to the conclusion that if you understand DOD, you understand the VA, right? I mean, it happens almost every administration. I mean, we've got so many, folks who are, generals or this or that, and they end up at the VA. And I think having that veteran experience is, of course, and military service is, of course, very important. But it doesn't mean you understand the Department of Veterans Affairs.
I don't think the VA understands the VA most of the time. That's just an observation, but they don't talk to each other. Benefits doesn't know what medical's doing, doesn't know what cemetery's doing. So I'm sure there are people that know what everybody does, but as a whole, they know what they do, and that's it.
That's right. Well, I think my second reaction was, as I dug into his background, is that he's taken on a number of different types of roles and been very successful in carrying out those missions, and he's consistently taken on larger roles. His career has continued to grow into more responsibility. I mean, being President Obama's second White House chief of staff, that's no light lift. And it certainly shows that he's an operator. He gets things done. You don't get those roles if you don't execute. And then of course, coming into the Biden administration, he is going to have incredible connections across the country, and hopefully some of those connections turn into, I think first things first, some really good political appointment picks at the Department of Veterans Affairs, as well as hopefully bringing in some fresh thinking from across the country. And I guess I'll ask you guys this question first. If you had a reservation, what would it be? What is your kind of key concern that you hope Dennis McDonough comes in and addresses that maybe he could get off onto the wrong path with? Joe?
We almost always on this go back to mental health care. That's such a pressing issue here. I think that the safe route, and for somebody who's going to have a learning curve, the safe route would be to protect the status quo, to continue doing what they're doing, and not look at new innovative ways to address this massive problem. So that my concern. That's what when I spoke with him on Friday, he called me Friday morning. We spoke about that a bit. He's promised we're going to have a lot more conversation about that. That's probably my biggest concern. Just understanding the enormity of that problem, the enormity of the VA in general.
Yeah. Commander Brown?
I was thinking along the same lines, is that the mental health issue, suicide prevention is such a, has been in a status quo, a rut, for lack of a better term, for so long that we need to, really, they're making strides into alternative and complementary medicine, but not fast enough,
Yeah.
so they need to look at that. And I tend to agree with that's to me, on my radar, that's the biggest issue. I think we've overcome a lot of the other things, access to healthcare. That's another one, particularly in our remote areas. We're blessed out here on the East Coast and the Midwest with, lots of access to VA, but the farther west you get, it seems like the less there is. So those would be two big things on mine: mental health and access to healthcare. So.
Yeah. And I actually share your both of your concerns. That would be the number one tip of tongue thing item for me as well, is that, he comes in, kind of gets the status quo download. He's not really steeped in the Department of Veterans Affairs. We need a paradigm shift, in how we are conducting mental health care, how we are trying to figure out to help veterans become their best self. Ideally, before they ever, get to the point where they need VA mental health care, and we're not there. And so that is, I think, a really good area of focus. And again, particularly, and it goes one of two ways, right? It's either, he drinks the status quo juice, or he looks at the facts and sees that, what we're doing is just not working, and we're gonna shake this up. So hoping to see more of that. Joe, I know it's it was a personal phone call, but what else can you tell us maybe about the phone call and with the secretary? And I know you're one of the first people to talk to him after getting this tap, if you will, in the veteran community. What can you tell us?
Yeah, he was very forthright and acknowledging the concerns that were being aired at that time. He acknowledged, that he, not being a veteran himself, he lacks a certain, level of personal perspective. He hasn't gone through the process of, maybe getting your VA benefits or going to a VA hospital to receive care. But he talked about his work ethic. He talked about that he will do everything he can to learn as quick as possible. He talked about the importance of surrounding himself with people who do have those personal perspectives. He talked about his ability and his relationships, his ability to get things done in Washington. When you're the chief of staff of the White House, you are building some really high profile or highly influential relationships. He said he's coming to this job fully prepared and with the will to pull every lever that he needs to get things done the right way for veterans. And he promised his full effort. He said he does not expect the benefit of the doubt. So he's going to earn our trust and our respect. He understands, the hesitation on the nomination, but in the end, he committed to working on this as hard as he can, and he sounds very confident that he's going to be able to be successful. Lastly, I'd just say he talked about the importance of VA's relationships with veteran service organizations, which was great to hear. That's something that's waned over the last couple of years. He talked about rebuilding those relationships and treating AMVETS like a real partner in this, and making sure that if he's making these changes and pulling all the stops to make the changes, that he's making the right changes.
Yeah, that's great. And it's great that he reached out so quickly. And I guess next step is when is the big sit down? And I guess we could also start polling for all of the other deputy secretary and other positions. I guess all that buzz starts happening now. It's going to be interesting to watch.
That'll be very interesting. There's a lot of really good people out there, for sure. And I think he needs to make sure he gets a wide variety. Some people who definitely have been there before, but then other people who can, as you mentioned earlier, Justin, bring a fresh set of eyes and fresh perspective to the VA.
Yeah. And To that effect, I think a lot of folks talked about the transition team that was appointed. I think some people expected to see more of a VSO presence. There was really none at all. What are some of your guys' thoughts on that?
I was surprised, but at the same time, I did feel people like Meg Cabot and Phil Carter know the space well. They broke the transition team into two halves. In the half that we Justin and Commander and Teresa Jackson also joined us, so we had a meeting with them. These are people who definitely know the policy, have been involved for a long time.
Yeah,
but it would have been good to see a VSO in there. It was kind of acknowledged to me later that was an oversight, that if they had to do it over again, they would have found somebody from a VSO to be on the transition team.
Good deal. Well, switching lanes, we already talked about that. Commander Brown, just yesterday, you put out the following tweet highlighting that AMVETS had submitted a letter to the House Oversight Committee, essentially asking for an investigation into what has been quite a debacle for Secretary Wilkie in terms of this allegation that Secretary Robert Wilkie, maybe some of his top political administrators, a member of Congress, basically worked to, I think at minimum, negate a claim that a female Navy veteran who works on Capitol Hill, Andrea Goldstein, had made at the Department of Veterans Affairs, essentially saying she was sexually harassed. Jan, what are some of your thoughts and feelings? I mean, you're the only national commander right now of one of the big six veteran service organizations. I gotta think that this just didn't hit you right.
I testified about this last February, right after it happened. And the fact that it's, coming on to the end of the year and it's still in the news tells me that they didn't take this seriously. And part of the reason that military women and or veterans don't report so much is because of things like this, where now all of a sudden the victim is the person in the wrong, not the other way around. And I honestly, I expected more of a Secretary of the Veterans Administration, one who has served both in the Air Force and in the Navy. And it's like, I was very disappointed, honestly, in the actions that were taken. One, to discredit Andrea. I thought that was, and most of the things were being discredited that they tried to discredit her with were proven to be wrong. So what's the point? Just, take care of the situation and not make a big deal about it. If people are punished for things they're not supposed to be doing, if a woman veteran doesn't feel safe going into a VA facility for fear of sexual harassment, assault, whatever, if walking down the halls of the VA is no better than walking past a construction site, and quite frankly, I've not heard of that happening in a long time. I think those people have been dealt with very seriously over the years. So I really just don't get it. And I thought it was highly unprofessional on that end. So I don't get it. And if they want to make sure that, women veterans are not going away. I'm sorry, now my granddaughter's in that category, and who knows how many, if she ever has children, whether they'll be, in the military. So this is not a problem that, women have been around in the military since the beginning of time, maybe not as actual military, but we've always been there. So get over it and move on. That's my thing. Not the people that are being harassed, but the time that I came up in, and I'm going to age myself here, came in at the tail end of Vietnam. And it was more the status quo. It's something you either learned to deal with or you didn't. Reporting it was not really an option because of just what happened to Andrea, is that you're not the victim anymore. You're the perpetrator. And it's the backlash and the retaliation that happens is why women don't report it. So the fact that she was strong enough to report it says a lot for her. So,
yeah. Well,
because in my day, we just didn't. We found other ways around it.
Well, Commander, your leadership on this issue has been incredible. Of course, AMVETS and DAV, the first to call for Secretary Wilkie's resignation over this issue. And, we're now at a place where, I don't know, last count, Joe is a bigger Twitter follower than I am. Last count, it was like 10, 15 members of Congress, 10 veteran service organizations, or the other way around. I'm sure that number is growing by the day. And, but VA came back and, essentially highlighted that they were, that Secretary Wilkie was not going to resign. We are talking about 1 month-ish, right, until potentially Secretary of the VA elect McDonough comes into office. Joe, what are your thoughts? Why is this important that the secretary does resign?
Bottom line is the secretary has lost our trust, and that's necessary. It's necessary that every veteran can trust the VA, that every veteran can go into a VA facility and feel safe and feel that if they are harmed in some way, the person who is causing that harm will be held accountable. To the Commander Brown's point, it shouldn't be any different out on the sidewalk as it is in a VA. There cannot be any perception that sexual harassment or sexual assault will be tolerated. And, I know we've only, Secretary Wilkie only has 35 days or something like that left in this term. And in all likelihood, Dennis McDonough will become the secretary at that point. But it's important that it's said now. And it's important that every veteran understands, too, that veterans organizations, AMVETS, is there for them. You can't call yourself an advocate for women veterans and remain silent on this.
Yeah, I think that is a challenge that some of the folks in DC have just not understood, right? They think like, oh, there's a month left. Why does it matter? This was kind of a one-off mistake, whatever you may want to call it. The fact is that these, organizations like AMVETS, like the DAV, they have worked, you guys have worked very, very hard to break down these cultural barriers. And so I applaud you guys. Jan, I wanted to get into, so the secretary basically says he's not going to resign. The following, I guess, day or the day after that, AMVETS comes out. They write a letter to the House Oversight Committee, essentially asking for a hearing to look into the VAOIG report. The VAOIG report essentially highlights that Secretary Wilkie and some of his political appointees were not very forthright with the investigation. Why is this important to you, Jan, that Congress actually take a second look at what the VAOIG report has put out?
we talked about, he only has like 35 days left, and that shouldn't matter. It's still an issue that needs to be dealt with, and not let him just slide out to, just kind of quietly leave. I still think this is something that needs to be addressed so that it doesn't happen again. If not, this is a man who holds a cabinet position in a very powerful administration, and it needs to be dealt with. And that's, all we can do with it. And I believe that, and do I think the Oversight Committee will do anything? Hard to say. Again, it's kind of we're at a lame duck position right here. Right now, we're coming into a new administration. We're coming into, it's the end of the year. We have a new Congress starting come the first of the year. So do I think something will happen? I can only hope that it will. So but I think it is important to, that we not just let it slide just because it's the end of his term.
Yeah. Well, and I think you bring up a really good point, which is, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Because I think at minimum, when you look at this, and if the allegations are true, Deputy Secretary Behrens left because of this. He insinuated that Secretary Wilkie asked him to help with this. He refused, and then he was fired. Those are his allegations. And then you have a situation whereby the VA is basically saying, hey, these people are not really participating in the investigation. So what is the check and the balance to make sure that doesn't happen? And I think it's a combination of the veteran organizations who are all now collectively saying, this secretary has lost our trust, and probably Congress, right, to conduct oversight and look into these allegations. And I think you guys hit the nail on the head. The right place for that is probably the House Oversight Committee, which, for our viewers is a rare landing place for veteran issues, right? I mean, most often it would be the House Veterans Affairs Committee. There are some key differences. Certainly raises the national awareness of this issue if you're getting called into the House Oversight Committee, and those are usually not comfortable hearings. I mean, the House Oversight Committee is not, famous for, just kind of like passive, looking into a program type issues.
No warm and fuzzies.
No, I mean they're not usually very comfortable. They're sometimes, I would argue, overly partisan. I hope that this isn't turned into a partisan issue, because I don't think it is. I think it's a poor leadership issue.
The VA is the one place where, we should always be, bipartisan, tripartisan, whatever. We need to be nonpartisan. And anybody that serves on those committees to be nonpartisan. And, this is not about politics. Again, it's about leadership. It's about, keeping the trust of the American veteran.
Yeah. Joe, you have any final words for us?
This letter to the Oversight Committee was addressed to both the chair and the ranking member. For that exact reason, we want to make sure this needs to rise above politics. This needs to be what's right and wrong. And Congress, hopefully will take this up as, a key part of their job and checks and balances that, makes up our government.
Yeah. I've got one more zinger, I guess, at the end for you, Joe. So as I said earlier, for our viewers, the woman Navy veteran who made this allegation, Andrea Goldstein, was also a pretty senior staffer for House Veterans Affairs Chairman Mark Takano. Would this have happened if it was anyone else, or do you see kind of a political angle here?
Well, Secretary Wilkie has certainly said that he believes it was a political a political stunt to take him down. I think that Secretary Wilkie took that all out of line here. And to your question itself, Justin, you don't know, but I think this illustrates what has happened. I mean, the amount of who spoke up since then and have said, they were wronged, and the investigation into the incident focused on them rather than on the perpetrator. And that's what this shows in the end here. So this isn't just a single case. This is something that illustrates a long time and still persistent problem.
No, I think you're right, and I think incredibly unfortunate how a secretary got involved in an incident at a local VA medical center in the first place is frankly kind of beyond me, and I think certainly was not the right move, and should have let the investigations go on, should have made sure they had all the resources they need and supported the ultimate findings, but certainly not weigh in, certainly not engage members of Congress. We could go on and on and on here, but great discussion today, Jan, Joe. Really appreciate you guys. I'm always impressed with the great work that AMVETS continues to do, and honored to be a part of that family. Jan, you have any final parting words?
Not on these subjects, but I hope everybody has a great holiday season and stay safe and socially distant.
All right. Well, let's do that. And we'll hopefully see everybody in the new year, if not sooner. And everyone have a great day.
All right. Thanks.
That is the Nimitz Report.